The great council chamber floated in space like a crystal palace. Inside, thousands of alien beings sat in rows that stretched up toward the curved ceiling. The air buzzed with different languages as representatives from across the galaxy gathered. For their monthly meeting, Ambassador Hyun Woo adjusted his scales nervously. The reptilian saurian had been giving reports to this council for 20 years, but today felt different. His clawed hands gripped the speech pad as he approached the speaking platform. "Honored council members," Hyun Woo began, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "The Saurian Empire reports successful trade negotiations with the Outer Rim colonies. Mining operations continue to expand and peace treaties remain stable across all 14 sectors under our protection." The crowd murmured politely. These monthly reports were usually boring. Dalsu, the sharp-faced prime minister from the Nexus Coalition, tapped his fingers impatiently on his desk. General Yoon-ji of the Talon Confederation yawned behind her warriors. But then something impossible happened. The ancient quantum archives began to glow. These massive data crystals had been silent for over 3,000 years. They were relics from the Elders, the mysterious first civilization that had vanished before most current species had even discovered fire. The crystals suddenly pulsed. With brilliant blue light, the entire council chamber fell silent. Even the translator machines stopped humming. A figure appeared in the center of the room. It was tall and thin, made of crackling energy and broken light. The hologram flickered like a dying candle, but its presence filled the enormous space. This was an elder, speaking from beyond time itself. "Warning. Warning to the children of the galaxy," the figure said. Its voice sounded like wind through ancient forests. "A species approaches from the far spiral arm. They call themselves humans." Boram, an elderly scholar from the Peaceful Wisdom Keepers, leaned forward in her chair. Her wrinkled hands trembled as she activated her recording device. In all her years of studying ancient texts, she had never seen an elder projection activate. "These humans possess something you have never encountered," the elder continued. "They do not simply adapt to their environment. They force their environment to adapt to them. When faced with the impossible, they make it possible. When confronted with certain death, they find a way to live." The projection began to flicker more violently. Static filled the air. "They are the species that turns impossibility into inevitability. They will not simply join your galactic community. They will reshape it completely, whether you wish it or not." Dalsu stood up, his face twisted with annoyance. "This is clearly a malfunction in ancient technology. We should not waste the Council's time with broken holograms and ghost stories." But the elder's voice grew stronger, more urgent. "Do not underestimate their capacity for both creation and destruction. They wage war like artists and create beauty from chaos. They will challenge every assumption you hold about what is possible." "General," Unji laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "Even if this thing is real, what primitive species could threaten our established order? We have weapons that can destroy stars. We have fleets that span entire sectors." The elder's form began to fade. "Weapons mean nothing to those who refuse to die. Fleets are useless against those who fight with their entire being. When the humans reach the stars, remember this warning. By then, it will be too late to stop what they will become." The projection flickered one final time. The galaxy will never be the same. Then the hologram vanished. The quantum crystals went dark. The council chamber erupted in confused chatter. "Clearly a system malfunction," Dalsu announced loudly. "Our sensors show no threats from the outer spiral arms. Our early warning systems would detect any approaching civilizations." "I agree," General Yoon-ji said, her voice dripping with confidence. "The Talon military has patrolled those regions for centuries. We have found nothing but primitive worlds with basic life forms. No space travel, no advanced technology, certainly no threats." But Boram remained quiet, her ancient mind working furiously. She had spent her life studying elder artifacts and their warnings. Never before had the quantum archives activated spontaneously. The Elders had been the most advanced civilization in galactic history. If they left a warning, it was for a reason. As the council session continued with normal business, Boram slipped away to her research station. Her fingers flew across holographic keyboards, searching through vast databases of information. She cross-referenced star charts, analyzed radio transmissions from distant systems, and studied every piece of data about the far spiral arms. Most of what she found was routine survey information. The third spiral arm contained thousands of star systems, most empty or filled with dead worlds. But deep in the files, she discovered something interesting. Several automated probe reports mentioned a small yellow star with a collection of rocky planets. The third planet showed signs of primitive life. The planet was called Earth in the old survey files. Its dominant species had recently discovered nuclear weapons and basic spaceflight. They had managed to reach their own moon, but showed no signs of interstellar capability. According to all data, they were thousands of years away from becoming a spacefaring civilization. Boram stared at the information for hours. These humans seemed completely ordinary. They were trapped on a single world, fighting small wars among themselves, struggling with basic environmental problems. How could such a primitive species possibly threaten the established galactic order? But the Elders' warning echoed in her mind. They force their environment to adapt to them. She pulled up more detailed files about human history. What she found disturbed her. These humans had survived multiple extinction events. Ice ages that should have killed them only made them stronger. Plagues that should have wiped them out led to medical advances. Wars that should have destroyed their civilization instead taught them cooperation. Every time they faced impossible odds, they found a way to not just survive but thrive. As Boram worked through the night, analyzing data and cross-referencing historical patterns, a terrible understanding began to grow in her mind. The Elder hadn't been warning about an invasion or a conquest. The warning was about something far more dangerous. The humans were coming, and when they arrived, nothing would ever be the same again. Not because they would destroy the galaxy, but because they would transform it in ways no one could predict or control. By morning, Boram had made her decision. She would continue studying these humans, preparing for their eventual arrival. Because if the Elders were right, the galaxy would need all the warning it could get. Captain Jinho stared at his ship's main display screen with growing confusion. The Stellar Predator was one of the Talon Confederation's most advanced warships, equipped with sensors that could detect a single atom moving at unusual speeds. But what his instruments were showing him made no sense. "Minseo, run that scan again," Jinho ordered his tactical officer. The young Talon warrior's face was pale behind her battle mask. "Captain, I have run the scan 5 times. The readings are consistent. There is a vessel approaching from the outer rim moving at 92% of light speed, but sir..." Minseo paused, her voice uncertain. "The propulsion signature suggests controlled nuclear explosions." Jinho's reptilian features twisted in disbelief. Nuclear pulse propulsion was something civilized species had abandoned thousands of years ago. It was crude, dangerous, and barely controllable. No sane being would use such primitive technology for interstellar travel. "Put it on the main screen," Jinho commanded. The image that appeared made the entire bridge crew gasp. The approaching vessel looked like it had been built in a scrapyard. Massive metal plates were welded together at rough angles. Nuclear charges detonated behind a thick pusher plate, driving the ship forward through space. It was ugly, primitive, and somehow terrifying in its simple brutality. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Jinho of the Talon Confederation warship Stellar Predator," he broadcast on all frequencies. "You are entering protected space. Reduce speed and prepare to be boarded for processing and integration into galactic society." The response came back in a language the ship's computers had never heard before. After a few moments, the translation software produced words on the screen. "This is Captain So-Young Kim of the Earth Coalition Navy vessel Perseverance. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. We request safe passage through this region of space." Jinho smiled, showing his sharp teeth. First contact situations were always entertaining. Primitive species usually surrendered immediately when they saw the power of Talon technology. His ship could destroy entire fleets. One crude vessel would be no challenge at all. "Captain So-Young," Jin-Ho replied, "your vessel must submit to inspection. You will shut down your engines and allow our teams to board. This is not a request." The human response was immediate and shocking. No. The single word hung in the air like a physical presence. Jin-Ho had never heard such a flat refusal from a primitive species. Usually they begged for mercy or tried to negotiate, but this human had simply said no, as if Jin-Ho's overwhelming firepower meant nothing. "I will ask one more time," Jin-Ho growled. "Surrender your vessel or face the consequences." "We understand your position," came the human reply. "Our answer remains the same. No." Jin-Ho's patience snapped. He activated his weapons systems, targeting arrays that could punch holes through asteroid fields. "Fire a warning shot across their bow. Show these primitives what they are dealing with." The stellar predator's main cannon fired, sending a bolt of pure energy past the human ship. The beam was bright enough to temporarily blind unprotected eyes and powerful enough to vaporize a small moon. What happened next defied every law of civilized warfare. Instead of surrendering, the human ship began to move in ways that should have been impossible. It spun end over end while continuing to accelerate, using its nuclear explosions not just for propulsion, but to change direction in 3 dimensions simultaneously. The Perseverance began dropping debris behind it, creating a cloud of metal fragments that interfered with Jin-Ho's targeting systems. "What are they doing?" Min-Seo shouted over the alarm sirens that had begun wailing throughout the bridge. Jin-Ho watched in horror as the human ship deliberately vented atmosphere from one side, using the escaping gas to spin faster while nuclear charges continued to explode behind it. The vessel was tearing itself apart but somehow still maintaining course toward his ship. "They are using their own destruction as a weapon," Min-Seo whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and terror. The humans had turned their primitive dying ship into a missile. They were accelerating directly at the stellar predator, using every nuclear charge they had left to build up speed. The Perseverance was coming apart at the seams, but Captain So-Young was aiming it like a bullet at Jin-Ho's much larger vessel. "Evasive maneuvers," Jin-Ho screamed, but it was too late. The Talon ship was designed for civilized warfare, where opponents followed established rules and fought with honor. The stellar predator was powerful but slow, built to overwhelm enemies with superior firepower, not to dodge kamikaze attacks from ships that treated their own destruction as a tactical advantage. Captain So-Young's final transmission came through. "The chaos. Earth remembers. We do not surrender. We do not give up. We do not go quietly." The Perseverance struck the stellar predator at nearly the speed of light. The primitive human vessel vaporized on impact, but its momentum and nuclear fuel created an explosion that tore through the Talon ship's shields like they were made of paper. Both ships died together in a ball of fire that could be seen from several light years away. 3 days later, rescue ships found the debris field. Among the wreckage, they discovered something that would haunt the dreams of every military officer in the galaxy. The humans had jury-rigged their ship's computer to broadcast a final message on repeat. "This is the Earth Coalition Navy. We came in peace, but you chose war. We are not afraid of you. We are not impressed by your technology. We are humans, and we do not surrender. If you want to fight us, remember this. We will always find a way to hurt you back, no matter the cost to ourselves." The message played over and over as salvage crews worked through the wreckage. Word of the battle spread quickly through military channels. A primitive vessel with nuclear pulse propulsion had destroyed an advanced Talon warship through sheer determination and tactical insanity. Military commanders across the galaxy began asking uncomfortable questions. If humans could turn a primitive exploration ship into a relativistic weapon, what could they do with actual military vessels? If they refused to surrender even when facing certain death, how could anyone fight them using conventional tactics? In her research station, Boram received the reports with growing dread. The Elder's warning was beginning to make sense. The humans had not won through superior technology or numbers. They had won by refusing to accept the rules that every other species took for granted. They had won by being impossible to defeat, even in defeat. The galaxy's first lesson about humanity was complete. Humans did not fight to win. They fought because surrendering was not an option, and that made them the most dangerous opponents anyone had ever encountered. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. News of the stellar predator incident had spread across every communication network, creating panic in military circles and confusion among civilian populations. How could a primitive species destroy an advanced warship? Boram stood at the speaker's platform, her aged hand steady despite the gravity of what she was about to reveal. The ancient scholar had spent months analyzing every piece of data about humans she could find, and what she had discovered terrified her. "Honored council members," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. The destruction of the Talon warship was not a random act of violence. It was a demonstration of human nature that we must understand if we hope to deal with this species. General Yunji leaned forward in her seat, her scarred face twisted with anger. "Scholar Boram, with respect, one lucky shot does not make these humans a threat." Captain Jinho was clearly unprepared for such primitive tactics. "That is exactly the point," Boram replied calmly. "We think of their tactics as primitive because we cannot understand them. Let me share what I have learned about human history." The main display screen filled with images from Earth. Pictures of ice-covered continents, massive volcanic eruptions, and asteroid impact sites appeared one after another. Humans have faced 5 major extinction events in their planet's history, Boram explained. Each time they should have died. Each time they not only survived but became stronger. When ice covered their world, they learned to control fire and work together. When disease killed millions, they developed medicine. When resources became scarce, they learned to share and cooperate. Wu Jin, a military analyst from the Nexus Coalition, raised his hand. "Scholar Boram, surely you are not suggesting that surviving natural disasters makes them dangerous to advanced civilizations?" "I am suggesting something far more disturbing," Boram answered. She activated another display showing human military history. Humans have been in a constant state of warfare for their entire recorded history. They have fought over territory, resources, beliefs, and sometimes for no reason anyone can understand. By all logic, this should have destroyed their civilization. The images showed battles from throughout human history. Ancient warriors with bronze weapons, medieval knights on horseback, soldiers in trenches, pilots in flying machines, and finally, armies with nuclear weapons. But instead of destroying them, warfare made them stronger, Boram continued. They learned to coordinate massive groups, to innovate under pressure, to sacrifice for their communities. Most importantly, they learned to never give up, no matter how hopeless their situation appeared. Dalsu stood up, his face showing his usual impatience. "This is all very interesting as a historical study, but these humans are still confined to one planet. They have no fleet, no advanced technology, no way to threaten our established order." "That was true 3 months ago," Boram said quietly. "It is no longer true today." The display screen changed to show recent intelligence reports. Images of crude human spacecraft appeared, each one different from the others. Some were built from metal asteroids, others from salvaged alien technology, and a few from materials that defied easy identification. Border stations have detected 17 different human vessels in the past month, Boram explained. Each one uses different technology, different approaches to space travel. They are not exploring in any organized way. They are spreading out randomly, testing different methods, learning from each success and failure. Hei-1, a xenopsychologist known for her studies of alien behavior patterns, activated her speaking device. "Scholar Boram, I have studied the psychological profiles you provided. These humans display behavioral patterns that do not match any known species. They appear to have evolved something we have never encountered before." "What kind of something?" General Yunji demanded. "Adaptive creativity under extreme stress," Hei-1 replied. Most species develop either intelligence or survival instincts. Humans developed both plus something else. When faced with impossible problems, they do not simply find solutions. They invent entirely new ways of thinking about the problem. Young-ho, a Saurian border commander, requested permission to speak. His scales were pale with fear. Council, members, I must report disturbing developments in Sector 7. Humans have established settlements on 3 worlds that our surveys marked as uninhabitable. Define uninhabitable, Dalsu said. One planet has surface temperatures that alternate between boiling and freezing every 12 hours. Humans are living there in underground cities they carved from solid rock. Another world has an atmosphere that is 90% carbon dioxide. Humans have built enclosed habitats and are somehow converting the toxic air into breathable atmosphere. The third planet has no atmosphere at all, just vacuum and radiation. Humans are living in spacesuits and metal domes, mining the surface for materials to build larger settlements. The council chamber fell silent. Living on such worlds should be impossible for any species, let alone one with primitive technology. There is more. Young-ho continued. The humans are not just surviving on these worlds. They are thriving. They have established trade routes between their settlements using vessels they build from whatever materials they can find. Some of their ships are made from ice and metal. Others are constructed from living plants they have somehow engineered to survive in space. Boram nodded grimly. This is the pattern the elders warned us about. Humans do not simply adapt to their environment. They reshape their environment to fit their needs. More importantly, they reshape themselves. She activated another display showing genetic analysis reports. Human DNA is unusually flexible. They can survive in environments that would kill other species, not because they are naturally resistant, but because they actively modify themselves. They use technology, surgery, genetic engineering, and pure determination to become whatever they need to be. But surely they must have some weaknesses, General Yunji protested. No species is invincible. They have many weaknesses, Boram agreed. They are physically fragile compared to most sapient species. Their technology is primitive and often unreliable. They have short lifespans and limited individual abilities. But they have one strength that overcomes all of these weaknesses. What strength? Dalsu asked. They refuse to accept that anything is impossible, Boram said simply. When you tell a human that something cannot be done, they do not hear a statement of fact. They hear a challenge. And they will keep trying new approaches until they either succeed or die in the attempt. The implications of this revelation settled over the council like a dark cloud. A species that treated impossibility as a personal insult would not be easily controlled or contained. What do you recommend we do? Asked the council speaker, an ancient being whose species had been leaders in galactic affairs for millennia. Boram looked around the chamber at the representatives of hundreds of species, all of them accustomed to order, rules, and predictable behavior from other civilizations. We must prepare for the galaxy to change, she said. Whether we want it to or not. Admiral Sung-min commanded the largest military fleet in galactic history. 500 warships from 3 different civilizations had gathered at the edge of human space, ready to establish a blockade that would contain this troublesome species once and for all. The plan was simple and had worked countless times before. Surround the humans, demonstrate overwhelming force, and demand their submission to galactic authority. All ships report ready, announced Commander Na Young from the tactical station, aboard the flagship Inevitable Victory. The Talon officer was considered one of the finest military minds in the galaxy, with victories against pirates, rebels, and rogue colonies spanning 3 decades. Begin containment protocol, Sung-min ordered. Standard formation. Send the surrender demand on all frequencies. The massive fleet moved into position around the human-controlled systems. Each ship was a masterpiece of military engineering, equipped with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand stellar bombardment. Against such overwhelming force, any rational species would immediately surrender. The human response came from Admiral Dongwoo Park aboard a vessel that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts. Admiral Sung-min, this is the Earth. Defense Fleet. We receive your demand for surrender and we respectfully decline. Please withdraw from human space or we will be forced to take defensive action. Sungmin stared at the main screen in disbelief. The human fleet consisted of maybe 50 ships, each one different from the others, none of them appearing to mount serious weapons. It was like a collection of mining vessels and cargo haulers trying to face down the combined might of 3 military empires. Admiral Park, Sungmin replied, you are outnumbered 10-1. Your vessels are primitive and lightly armed. I will give you 1 hour to reconsider your position. We have considered our position, came the immediate reply. We are humans. We do not surrender. That should be clear by now. Na-young activated her tactical display, studying the human ship formations. What she saw made no military sense. The human vessels were scattered randomly throughout the system with no apparent defensive pattern or coordinated strategy. Admiral, she reported, their formation is completely chaotic. They have no unified command structure that I can detect. Each ship appears to be operating independently. Excellent, Sungmin said. Begin the demonstration. Target their largest vessel with a low-power warning shot. The inevitable Victory's main cannon fired a beam that could have destroyed a small moon. The energy blast struck the largest human ship, a converted cargo hauler called the Stubborn Mule. The beam should have disabled the vessel's shields and sent a clear message about galactic firepower. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ship absorbed the energy blast and somehow redirected it into its own power systems. The Stubborn Mule actually became brighter and more active after being shot. How is that possible? Na-young whispered. Before anyone could answer, the human counterattack began. But it was unlike anything in the military textbooks. Instead of firing back with weapons, the human ships began broadcasting on every communication frequency simultaneously. They flooded the Galactic Fleet's computers with data streams, advertisements, music, poetry, technical manuals, and thousands of messages from individual humans. Dear alien friends, one message began. My name is Gite, and I am 8 years old. I want to be your friend. Here is a picture I drew of your spaceship. It is very pretty, but I think it would look better with flowers painted on the sides. Another message was more technical. To the engineers aboard the enemy fleet, we notice your shield harmonics are creating dangerous resonance patterns. Here are 17 different ways to fix this problem. Please adjust your configurations before someone gets hurt. A third message was philosophical. War is just a failure to communicate properly. We would like to discuss our differences over coffee and cake. We have excellent coffee and our bakers make wonderful cake. Everyone is invited. The sheer volume of communication was overwhelming. Every computer system in the Galactic Fleet was struggling to process the flood of human messages, but worse than the quantity was the content. The humans were not threatening or demanding. They were being friendly, helpful, and completely sincere. Turn off the communication arrays, Sungmin ordered. Block all incoming transmissions. But when the communication systems went dark, the real human strategy became clear. While the Galactic Fleet had been distracted by the message flood, human ships had been quietly moving into new positions. They were no longer scattered randomly. They had formed a perfect sphere around the much larger Galactic Fleet. Sir, Na-young reported, her voice tight with confusion. We are surrounded. Impossible. They only have 50 ships. Yes, sir, but they have somehow positioned themselves so that any movement we make will require us to fire through their formation. If we advance, retreat, or maneuver in any direction, we will have to shoot through human vessels to reach our objectives. Admiral Dongwu's voice came over the communication system again. Admiral Sungmin, we have taken defensive positions. Any hostile action against human ships will be considered an act of war against Earth. However, you are welcome to leave peacefully at any time. Sungmin found himself in an impossible situation. The humans had turned his overwhelming numerical advantage into a disadvantage. He could not attack without destroying human ships, which would escalate the conflict beyond containment into actual war. But he could not retreat without losing face before the entire galaxy. Fire a spread of missiles around their formation, he ordered. Miss them deliberately, but show them our firepower. The Galactic Fleet launched hundreds of missiles in a demonstration of their destructive capability. The weapons streaked past the human ships, detonating safely in empty space but creating explosions visible from several star systems away. The human response was immediate and terrifying. Every human ship simultaneously released small objects into space. At first, they looked like debris or waste materials. But as the objects drifted toward the Galactic Fleet, sensors revealed the truth. The humans had launched thousands of small devices, each one containing a simple message. Friendship gift from Earth. Contains one flower seed, one cookie recipe, one poem about peace, and one technical manual for improving your weapon systems. Please enjoy. They are gift bombing us, Na Young said in a voice filled with disbelief. But the gifts were more than symbolic gestures. Hidden within each peaceful package was sophisticated scanning equipment that mapped every ship in the Galactic Fleet. The humans were learning everything about galactic military technology, while simultaneously demonstrating that they could deliver small packages to any target they chose. More disturbing was what happened next. As reports came in from across the galaxy, Sung Min learned that humans were appearing everywhere. They had somehow bypassed the blockade and were showing up on space stations, trade planets, and military bases throughout galactic civilization. "Sir," came a report from Sector Command. "We have humans on Deep Space Station 9. They applied for jobs as maintenance workers. Station Administrator Gitae hired them because they offered to work for half the normal wage." "Arrest them immediately," Sung Min ordered. "Sir, we cannot. They have done nothing illegal. In fact, they have improved station efficiency by 300% in just 2 weeks. The station administrator refuses to let us remove them." Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Humans were working as traders, engineers, teachers, entertainers, and problem solvers. They were not conquering planets or demanding territory. They were simply making themselves useful and somehow becoming indispensable. Commander Na Young stared at her tactical displays with growing horror. The humans had not won through superior firepower or advanced technology. They had won by being so helpful and competent that removing them would cause more problems than allowing them to stay. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I believe we have lost this confrontation." "How can we have lost? We still have overwhelming firepower." "Yes, sir, but we can no longer use it without destroying something the galaxy needs. The humans have made themselves essential to galactic civilization in just a few months. If we attack them now, we will be attacking the people who fix our machines, improve our trade routes, and solve our problems." Admiral Sung Min stared at the human ships surrounding his fleet. They were still ugly, primitive, and obviously outgunned. But somehow they had won a victory that no amount of firepower could reverse. The humans had not conquered the galaxy. They had simply made themselves irreplaceable. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was interrupted by alarms that had not sounded in over 2,000 years. Ancient warning systems, built by civilizations long dead, screamed across every communication channel with a message that froze the blood of every sapient being in the galaxy. The Devourers had returned. Supreme Commander In-Suk stood before the massive display screens showing the advancing threat. The mechanical plague that had consumed entire star systems in the distant past was moving through the outer rim like a wave of destruction, converting everything in its path into more of itself. Current projections show the Devourer fleet will reach the core worlds in 18 months, In-Suk announced to the terrified council. They have grown stronger since their last appearance. Our conventional weapons are proving ineffective. The images on the screen showed the aftermath of the first battles. Entire fleets had been consumed, their technology absorbed and improved by the mechanical swarm. The Devourers learned from every encounter, adapting to new tactics faster than any biological civilization could respond. "What about the planetary defense grids?" asked General Yunji, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. "Overrun in the first wave," In-Suk replied grimly. "The Devourers have incorporated our own defensive technologies into their assault patterns. Every weapon we use against them becomes a weapon they use against us." Admiral Sung Min raised his hand. "Supreme Commander, what about coordinated strikes using our combined fleets?" If all three military empires worked together, we tried that approach at the Battle of Kepler's Edge, Insuk interrupted. We lost 800 ships and barely slowed their advance. The Devourers analyzed our formation tactics and developed countermeasures within hours. A heavy silence fell over the council chamber. For the first time in galactic history, the established civilizations faced an enemy they could not defeat through conventional means. Every strategy that had worked for millennia was useless against an opponent that learned and adapted faster than they could. "There is one option we have not considered," said a voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to see Admiral Jae-Sung Lee of the Earth Defense Fleet. The human representative looked tired but determined as he walked to the speaker's platform. His simple uniform contrasted sharply with the elaborate military dress of the galactic officers. "With respect, Admiral Lee," Insuk said carefully, "the human fleet numbers fewer than 100 ships. While we appreciate your offer of assistance, this threat requires resources far beyond what Earth can provide." Jae-Sung smiled, but it was not a happy expression. "Supreme Commander, you are thinking about this problem like a conventional military engagement. The Devourers are not a conventional enemy. They cannot be defeated by throwing more ships at them." "Then how do you propose we stop them?" Dalsu demanded. "Your species has been in space for less than 5 years. What could you possibly know about fighting an enemy that has consumed half the galaxy?" "We know about fighting impossible odds," Jae-Sung replied simply. "It is what humans do best. And we have a plan." He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy's communication networks, trade routes, and infrastructure systems. The Devourers' strength comes from their ability to learn and adapt. Every time we fight them conventionally, we teach them new ways to defeat us. But what if we could turn their learning ability against them? Commander Na-Young leaned forward, her tactical mind immediately grasping the implications. "You want to feed them false information. Make them adapt to strategies that will ultimately destroy them. More than that," Jae-Sung said. "We want to use the galaxy's own infrastructure as a weapon. The Devourers absorb and improve technology they encounter. What if we could engineer a technology that improves itself to death?" The plan that Jae-Sung outlined was so audacious that several council members dismissed it as insane. It required every major civilization to share their most classified technologies, to trust humans with access to critical systems across the galaxy, and to coordinate their defenses in ways that violated centuries of military doctrine. "You are asking us to give you control of our planetary defense networks, our communication systems, and our industrial infrastructure," Insuk said slowly. "The level of access you require would essentially make humans the dominant power in the galaxy." "Yes," Jae-Sung agreed without hesitation. "It would. The question is whether you trust us enough to save the galaxy, or whether you prefer to watch it burn while maintaining your independence." The debate that followed was the most intense in galactic history. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves arguing for cooperation. Trade empires that had guarded their secrets for centuries faced the choice between sharing everything or losing everything. Boram, now ancient and frail, spoke with a voice that carried the weight of prophecy. "The elders warned us about this moment. Not about the humans being dangerous to us, but about us being too proud to accept their help when we needed it most." In the end, desperation overcame pride. With the Devourers consuming 3 more star systems while they debated, the galactic powers agreed to the human plan. What followed was the largest coordinated effort in galactic history. Engineer Tae-Ho Kim led a team that reprogrammed communication networks across hundreds of worlds, turning them into a massive trap. Scientist Eugene Choi developed viral programs designed to spread through Devourer systems, causing cascading failures in their learning algorithms. The final battle was fought not with ships and weapons, but with information and deception. When the Devourer fleet reached the core worlds, they found exactly what they expected: a galaxy united in conventional defense, using predictable tactics and standard technologies. The Devourers absorbed this technology eagerly, adapting and improving, as they always had. But this time, the technology had been designed by humans who understood that the best trap is one the enemy builds for themselves. As the Devourers incorporated the modified galactic technology into their systems, they unknowingly infected themselves with programs that turned their own adaptive ability into a weapon of self-destruction. The more they learned, the more unstable their systems became. The more they adapted, the faster they fell apart. The end came not with a massive explosion, but with a quiet shutdown that spread through the entire Devourer fleet like a computer virus. In less than 6 hours, the greatest threat in galactic history simply stopped functioning. In the aftermath, as salvage crews worked through the remains of the Devourer fleet, Bo-Ram delivered what would be her final speech to the Galactic Council. The Elder's warning was never about humans being dangerous, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It was about humans being necessary. They warned us that once humans reached the stars, the galaxy would never again be able to function without them. She looked around the chamber at representatives who were still struggling to understand what had happened. The humans did not conquer us through force. They inherited leadership by being the only species capable of solving problems the rest of us considered impossible. The new Galactic Charter was signed 3 months later, establishing humans as equal partners in galactic civilization. But everyone present understood the reality. Humans were not equal partners. They were the partners everyone else would turn to when the impossible needed to become possible. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Jae Sung found himself standing beside Bo-Ram in the observation deck overlooking the council chamber. "Do you think your people understand what they have done?" the ancient scholar asked. Jae Sung considered the question carefully. "We saved the galaxy from the Devourers." "You did more than that," Bo-Ram replied. "You saved the galaxy from itself, from its rigid thinking, its fear of change, its inability to adapt when adaptation was necessary." The Elders knew this day would come. They knew that eventually, the galaxy would face a problem that could only be solved by a species that refuses to accept impossibility. She turned to look at him with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. "The galaxy tried to contain your species because we were afraid of what you would do to our established order. We never realized that we needed you to break that order before it killed us all." As the representatives of hundreds of species filed out of the chamber, beginning the process of rebuilding galactic civilization with human innovation at its core, Bo-Ram smiled for the first time in decades. The Elder's warning had finally been understood, but just as predicted, it was too late to stop what humans had become. Not the conquerors of the galaxy, but its salvation.